Today, we talk to Gareth Chambers, COO of 4 Pillars Group. 4 Pillars Group is a recruitment-focused investment firm and since its inception has gone from strength to strength in the APAC region. But Gareth's story started out in the UK, where he has worked his way through some of the recruitment sector's leading businesses and ultimately ended up in Sydney, where he has continued his career growth and now manages a growing portfolio of recruitment businesses across the APAC region, helping them to launch and scale their offerings. Hi Gareth, welcome to Rise to Prominence. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's nice to be back in Sydney, back in my old haunt.
You have a good time here?
Yes, always nice. Although the weather's been horrific, which happens every time I come back to Australia. I know, I need to time my trips better, I think.
Yeah, no, we need to get here. December, January.
I know, time it really badly. But not about me, about you. So let's talk about where your career started. You're from the UK. How did you get into the recruitment world?
Completely by accident. I qualified originally as a lawyer and practiced law for a year. I was probably one of the worst lawyers ever. Never really had a clear plan or passion about doing that, sort of steered there by advisors who probably just wanted me to go and do something safe. So I went to a recruitment agency to get some career advice around, I spent 5 years studying law, a year practicing law. I don't really enjoy it, but what can I do with all this information and qualifications? And one of the agencies I went to said, well, we think you'd be quite good at recruitment. So I didn't really know what that was, but I thought I'd give it a go for a year. And here I am 30 years later, still actively involved in the recruitment world. So it's been, it was quite an accidental, serendipitous start to a 30-year career path.
I think most recruiters would have a very similar answer, to be honest. So
recruitment finds us. We don't generally find recruitment.
Yeah, and in those businesses, you worked in a few different recruitment agencies while you're in the UK, right? You had quite, I would say, an uncommon tenure in those businesses. The big chunks of time you spent in there, typically recruiters might do a couple of years here, a couple of years there. What was it about those businesses that you worked in that made you want to stay?
The first business I worked for, not surprisingly, a legal recruitment business, because that was something where I could draw on that bit of understanding of the law and legal practice. So the first business was a legal recruitment business. It was a startup legal recruitment business, which has now gone on to become, in size terms, one of the highly scaled legal recruitment businesses in the world. But I was poached from there quite quickly, about 18 months in, by the MD of a very ambitious business who brought me across. And he really pushed me up the ranks really, really quickly. And within 2 or 3 years, by the age of about 27, I was running 4 offices, and he just kept pushing me up. And that was great. And it was very accelerated career development. So I think I stayed in that business quite a while, as you say, relatively speaking, for quite a young age, because he just kept pushing me, never let me sort of operate in my comfort zone, pushed me on to bigger roles. So I was evolving and progressing really quickly, and that probably accounts for why I stayed there for quite a while.
Makes sense. And then there was the move to Sydney. Do you want to talk about why that happened? I'm sure for most people it'll be a no-brainer, but what made that, fueled that decision?
When 1999, so just before the Sydney Olympics of 2000. Why? Look, the honest answer to that is personal reasons. I was the big love of my life in my 20s. I'd broken up with. I was a bit brokenhearted, and I felt as though everyone had been to Sydney except me by that stage in my life. And I just probably came here thinking it would be for 2 years.
Very similar story to me, actually.
Really?
So when I first moved to Sydney, that was a very similar story. Although obviously I went back to the UK,
nursing a broken heart, that sort of thing.
Going to live my backpacker life, and then
I just wanted to come and check it all out. Thought I'd be here 2 years, and then after a year, I met a woman who I then went on to marry and have 3 kids with. So my 2-year plan ended up being a bit of a lifelong plan. I was very nervous about telling my mum that I wasn't going home, but look, Sydney's been my home since, and I love going back to the UK, but Sydney's home now.
Yeah, and then a similar story when you got here as well, right? There was a few businesses, you were there for significant periods of time. Was there any kind of fundamental differences between working here in Australia compared to the UK and the way recruitment runs? I know you're going to say probably most of those recruitment agencies are probably British anyway, but did you find there was any difference in how the two countries work?
Yeah, I mean, the first business I joined here, moved here with, was Michael Page, which is
Yeah.
a very well-known, big British recruitment company. And I chose a big business because when you're starting your life in a new country, I felt at that time, you wanted support, you wanted access to a social network, and it was a great decision. And I met some great people there, and I met my the woman who became my wife there as well. She was in the marketing team, so it was great from that point of view. But by the time I'd been there 2 years, I was then sort of hitting my early 30s. I think we just got engaged, and I was starting to think longer term. Didn't necessarily see a path with Michael Page going into sort of senior management. And what I wanted to do was go into more executive search, with still in legal at that time, which has really been my main market throughout my career. And I couldn't find a specialist executive search business specializing in legal. So I don't know if it was craziness or just simple thought process, but I thought, well, if there isn't one to join, I'll set up my own and I'll launch my own. And that's what I did. So I launched a business in 2001 called Peritus, and spent the next 7 or so years building that before I sold it.
Fab. And then obviously fast forward to now, 4 Pillars Group.
Yeah.
I know that was kind of the outcome of a relationship you had with Definitive Consulting.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. How did that come about, and then that relationship come about, and then that lead to 4 Pillars?
Yeah, so after the business I just mentioned, Peritus, so I sold that in 2007, 2008. It was just before the GFC crash. So, somebody was certainly looking out for me there with the timing of that. And then I had a period where I just had a complete break. I was a bit burnt out from building the Peritus business as hard as I did, and went back to the UK for a year actually, and just had a sabbatical, took my wife and then 2 kids. I've now got 3, and we just spent some time over there. And was really just regrouping and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and came back to Sydney. 2013, the owner of Definitive Consulting, who's now my co-founder in 4 Pillars Group, a guy named Darren James, was launching and developing Definitive Consulting over here in Australia and in Asia, and wanted somebody to join and really take quite a sort of leading developmental role in that. And we decided to sort of join forces. I moved up to Singapore, where he was at the time, and spent about 4 years working closely with him and others to develop Definitive Consulting into Asia. So that's what I did for 4 years up there.
And then when did the 4 Pillars part come in?
4 Pillars. So by 2018, I'd been in recruitment 25 years, and the time up in Singapore had been amazing. We were brokering some incredible mergers between Singapore law firms and international law firms, and I felt probably by that point as though I'd gone as far as I could as a legal recruiter, and had done probably as much as I could realistically in recruitment. And was just at that moment thinking, well, what am I going to do? It's another point in my career where I thought, 25 years now of recruitment experience. I don't want to keep recruiting. I feel as though I've done everything. And just another serendipitous thing where a guy who had been a mentor to me in London in the 1990s had become the group CEO of a specialist recruitment investment business in the UK. And they were looking to explore whether there was a market opportunity for them in Australia and Asia. And basically, I spent about 12 to 18 months working with them, and sort of learning all about recruitment investment and the strategy around recruitment investment. And that was the start of the path into recruitment investment.
Fab. And now tell us a bit about 4 Pillars. How many businesses have you got under your umbrella?
4 Pillars we launched 2021.
Yep.
So it was that sort of post-COVID period. So it was a slow launch, cautious launch at first. Not easy launching businesses in lockdowns. But we signed one business, Curamore. And we were introduced to a fantastic guy named Donnie Lawler, Irish guy, just full of energy, full of ambition, full of motivation. Wanted to launch his own business, and just had that self-awareness to know that as good as he was, he needed a bit of guidance on things he recognised he wasn't naturally strong at or didn't have much experience in, around sort of not how to recruit, but how to develop the business. And we just gelled and we could see exactly what he wanted to do and how we could support that. So Curamore was our first business, and fast forward now, 3.5 years, 6 businesses now in the portfolio. We've got coming up to or around 60 people now across those 6 businesses, and people on the ground here in this region in Tokyo, Singapore, Sydney, Perth, and Brisbane. So we'll probably complete the rollout across Australia with Melbourne, maybe go over into Dubai, over on this side as well, and keep building in Singapore and Tokyo.
So you've got a lot of experience working in different recruitment agencies, also now, I guess, in running different recruitment agencies. What do you think is the difference between what makes a successful recruitment agency and the ones that struggle to scale or don't quite get off that mark?
God, that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't think there's kind of a magic sauce. I do think a lot of it comes down to some good old-fashioned principles. Really, a leader who knows, I see the absolute critical importance of a leader who has a very strong, what I call why, a reason, a purpose, almost like people who are on a mission to succeed are quite unstoppable people in my experience. So a leader with a very strong drive and a strong motivation and a strong purpose, who knows their why they're doing it. Because the how and the what, for me, follows on from the why. If you know why you want to do something and why you're motivated and driven to do it, then you know everything else will fall in behind that. So I think that's really critical. And that's one of the things we look for with 4 pillars, investments, businesses and people coming to 4 pillars. Do they have a clear motivation, personal sense of why they want to do this? Because those people can be quite unstoppable. So that's a key thing. Then, you know, when you're looking at molding and developing and building a business, you look at putting in place a good infrastructure, making good sound decisions, identifying your strategy, identifying your market. To successfully scale any recruitment business, you've got to nail what I call the 3 C's, your strategy around the 3 C's. You've got to have a very clear and compelling client strategy, candidate strategy, and consultant strategy. Consultants being the people that you're going to employ to come in and work in your recruitment business. So you've got to be really, really clear on your thinking, your strategy, and your approach to those 3 critical things.
So is that kind of a big part of your role in terms of when you bring on these businesses, helping them define those 3 C's? And what does that look like then if you partner with a new recruitment agency and you're looking at those 3 C's? What's the process you go through with them to help them get to that point? So
we really invest in 2 scenarios. We'll either back an experienced recruiter to launch and then grow their own business. That's the majority of our investments. We do also invest into existing but early stage small recruitment businesses. We are a seed capital investor, so we're the people that invest right at the beginning. So when we're talking to either an existing early stage business or an experienced recruiter looking to launch their own business, we go through a very detailed process of business planning, budget planning, and we really road test their ideas and their thinking around, so how are you going to acquire and grow your client base? What is going to be your candidate strategy? And how and why are people going to want to come and work for your recruitment business, whether they're rookies coming into recruitment for the first time or experienced recruiters working in your competitors? What is it that's going to make them want to come here? What's your USP as a business? What's your point of difference? We really work closely with the founders and the owners to get them thinking really clearly around that. And then in terms of executing all of that, you know, we work obviously with yourselves, Prominence, around marketing strategy, bringing, you know, strong, clear messaging behind the businesses to support all of those things, how they market to their clients, how they market to their candidates, and how they market to the potential consultants in their sector. So all of those things, the clarity of thinking, the strategy, the execution, the marketing, all of it goes into really ensuring that they have a clear sense of purpose and vision around what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and I guess that's good advice for any recruitment agency, no matter what size they are, whether they're looking for investment or not, to go through that activity to try and determine those, like I said, the 3 C's, because ultimately that's what's going to make them successful either way.
Yeah.
Do you have any other advice for, I guess, that startup, small recruitment agencies that you can share?
Yeah, look, I think, one of the things if I sit here and think about what do I spend a lot of time talking to aspirational recruitment business owners and existing business owners about, and, one of the clear points of difference that I tend to draw out is, do you want a lifestyle business, or do you want to scale your business into something that has an existence and an identity and a value outside just you as a person? If it's a lifestyle business, it's essentially an income business. And that's great for people who essentially want to maximize the income from their personal efforts as a recruiter. And that's a great way to make a good income. If you want to scale a business, that's a very, very different path. Because really that's more about taking your eyes off yourself and putting your energy into helping and training and developing others to replicate what you do. And that's what we spend time with recruitment business founders and owners doing. I would always say to people, only go down that path if you've got a very clear idea and plan of what you want to do with that business once it's scaled. Because if you grow it to a 10 recruiter or a 15 recruiter business, it's going to be hard to find a buyer for that business if that's what you're looking to do. If you're looking to sell that business in 5, 10, 15 years time, and you grow it to 10, 15 recruiters, it's not easy to find a buyer for a business of that sort of size. So one of the 4 pillars of what we offer, and that's why we named the business 4 Pillars Group, one of the 4 pillars is a very clear sale and exit strategy, which for us is all about creating a portfolio of 15 plus diverse specialist white collar recruitment businesses that we will sell as a combined portfolio to a private equity buyer when we have the scale and the diversification in the portfolio to do so.
Well, one of my questions was going to be what's the next 5 years hold for you, but it sounds like you've already got your plan in place.
Yeah, look, we practice what we preach. When Darren and I were really working on the idea behind and the concept behind and the plan behind 4 Pillars Group, we identified those very distinct 4 pillars, which is why we named the business what we did. So, the funding and funding support, the operational infrastructure and support, the mentoring and development around business strategy, cash flow and financial management, leadership development, and then the sale and exit strategy. The next 5 years for us are very clearly getting the portfolio from where it is now, which is 6 businesses, to 15 businesses. We're not a high volume investor. We probably bring 2, maximum 3 businesses a year into the portfolio. We're very selective and very clear about bringing people and businesses in that align with the 4 Pillars Group vision for them and for us. We are on track to get to that 15 business size in that next 5 year period, and then helping each of the businesses in the portfolio grow to at least 10 recruiters. But ultimately, we believe and we're confident that when the portfolio as a whole gets to 200 plus recruiters, diversified across multiple locations, multiple industry sectors, multiple verticals, and with a solid base of temp and contract margin of probably 30+% of the overall net profit, we're going to have a portfolio that's going to attract interest from buyers.
You mentioned there that kind of the 10 to 15 head recruitment agencies will struggle to find a buyer. Tell me more about that. Like, what is it that isn't appealing about a business that size for potential buyers?
Risk. So when you look at, let's take a 10 recruiter business. I mean, if it's a perm only business, essentially you're talking there about a business that is heavily dependent on the performance of a small number of individuals within the business.
Yeah.
Probably has a relatively small client base. It's a very specialist business. It's probably in one sector, possibly even one vertical within a sector. So it has what we would probably tend to refer to as a high concentration risk. Its performance, its profit is concentrated into a small number of things. One sector, possibly one vertical, small number of clients, and a small number of high performers within the business. Often when a buyer looks at acquiring a business, they don't assume best case scenario, they assume worst case scenario. So they'll look at it and say, well, if we buy this business, the chances are that of the 10 people that come across to us with the business, only 6 or 7 might stay. So we're going to lose 3 or 4, and it's quite possible we'll lose 3 or 4 of the best performers in the business. So immediately the value of what they've bought plummets. So it simply doesn't have the scale, the diversification, and in many cases, certainly if it's a perm-only recruitment business, doesn't have that locked-in recurring revenue of a temps business to make it a viable, safe, commercially sound acquisition from a buyer's point of view.
So if someone's listening to this podcast and they are a 15-head recruitment agency in one vertical only doing perm, and they did want to scale and exit, look at how you can diversify what you're recruiting in.
If they are running a 15 recruiter business, they need to scale, diversify, and build up. If they're certainly a perm business, build up more in temp and contract revenue as part of their net profit. So, they need to think about how they do that. Do they do that
4 Pillars come in?
They should probably come and talk to 4 Pillars. Yeah. We might have a proposition for them. But they're going to struggle to sell their business with those kinds of numbers. So they need to grow, they need to diversify, and they're going to have to grow. They're going to have to build up in temp and contract.
So to go back to your career specifically, obviously the title of the podcast is Rise to Prominence. You've had, I'm sure, what everyone would call a very successful career. There's people probably looking at you saying, okay, I want something similar. What do you think is that kind of the traits that people need to have to be able to kind of get to where you are in their stage of their career? What's been the most valuable thing you've been able to bring to a business that other people can replicate? I
mean, I think ties in a little bit with what I was talking about earlier, having a strong sense of purpose and a strong why. If I look at people I really admire for the success they've had, what they've achieved, they're people who've been very focused and motivated by a very strong why and sense of purpose, and people who've almost been on a mission. And if I reflect on my career over what's now the last 30 years, one of the things that I've benefited from earlier in my career through the support of others, and later in my career through myself, has been not allowing myself to get caught or trapped in a comfort zone. So, I see a lot of people in my work today with 4 Pillars Group who I can see a little bit trapped in a comfort zone, and nothing really grows, nothing really develops in a comfort zone. So successful people know when to push themselves out of their comfort zone. So I think for me, there's been a lot of not necessarily reinventing myself, but recognizing when I'm getting a bit stale or stuck in a comfort zone, and then pushing myself out of that, and looking for a new challenge, looking to add another bow to my string to my bow rather, and just pushing on in that journey. So I think not getting locked in or trapped in a comfort zone for too long is really key. And as I said, having that very well defined sense of why and a clear purpose is really key as well.
Yeah. So thanks so much for being on the podcast, Gareth.
Pleasure.
There's 2 questions we always ask our guests at the end. What are your 3 biggest learnings from your career in recruitment? Is the first one.
Can we do that second? Because I might need a minute to think about that.
Okay, digest that one. The second is, who would you nominate to be on the Rise to Prominence podcast in the future?
So who would I nominate? I'm just going to think about who the people I've met through Four Pillars Group in the last, or got to talk to over the last 3 or so years. Probably a few people that really stick in my mind as people I've really enjoyed meeting. I think are just really interesting people. The guy who springs to mind is a guy who's not part of the Four Pillars Group, but I've just thought he was a great person as an individual, full of motivation, full of ideas, natural born entrepreneur. I just really enjoyed meeting him. It's a guy named Steve Grace, who is the founder and leader of a business called the Nudge Group, and I think he'd be a great guy to have on your podcast.
Oh, we'll have to reach out to him for sure. Are you ready to go back to the first question? 3 biggest learnings?
3 biggest
You don't have
learnings.
to say 3. If you've got 2, that's fine.
Okay, so 3 biggest learnings. Okay, I think I've touched on them already. So I think a lot of people spend a lot of time focusing on their what and their how, and those are really important. But find your why first, because if you find your why, and your why is really important to you, then everything will flow from that. You'll find your what, you'll find your how, but really identify why. What is it that's going to motivate you to do what you're setting out to do? And if you know what that why is, then you'll be pretty unstoppable. So that's number 1. Number 2, don't get stuck in a comfort zone. Nothing grows in a comfort zone. Nothing develops in a comfort zone. And though it's nice and comfortable and easy, and maybe there are I've had a period after I sold the Peritus business. I was in a comfortable comfort zone for a while, and it's hard to come out of a comfort zone because it's nice and it's comfortable. And but nothing grows there. Nothing evolves there, and you've got to push yourself out of that if you really want to keep moving forward, keep evolving. So don't get trapped or stuck in a comfort zone. The third one, and this is something I've learned at times the hard way, but success, high levels of success, comes from patience and remembering that the path to high levels of success is a marathon, not a sprint. And you've got to consistently apply yourself to a goal over a long period of time to achieve really high levels of success with it. So there's no shortcuts to success generally, unless you're a lucky lotto winner or something like that. There's no shortcuts. You've got to put in the hard work. You've got to do the grind. Just don't try and take shortcuts. Go the marathon, go the distance.
Solid advice. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, Gareth.
Pleasure.